Ahora le toca el turno a Nancy Pasco del National Parks Trust of the Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to try and multitask here. It's not usually very good with me, but well, thank you very much. This is the first time I've ever attended the Botanical Congress. I'm very proud to be here, and I'm also here with my colleague, Senior Trust Warden Keith Grant. So any questions, please direct either one of us. We were asked to put in Spanish and English, so I did use Google Translate, so I'm putting a disclaimer out if the Spanish is not coming out nonsensically. So I'm here to talk to you about a new project that we're doing that's funded by the UK, the Darwin Plus funded project called Integrating Biodiversity Metrics into Conservation Management and Planning in the British Virgin Islands. Sounds very technical, but I'm going to walk you through it. So I always do a map for certain, because if no one's ever heard of Barbados, they certainly haven't heard of the British Virgin Islands. And I will say we are the British Virgin Islands, not the US. So we're a British overseas territory of the UK. And I always have to say we're next to Puerto Rico, because most people have heard of Puerto Rico. So this map is just giving you an idea. We have 61 islands and keys. We are very small. The island I live on is 21 square miles. We have a population of about 30,000 people. So we're small but unique. And we've been, studying the plants with the Royal Botanic Gardens queue, which I'm going to talk about in a bit, for the past 25 years. So we've been documenting our plant species. The British Virgin Islands, the US Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico are all on the same bank. So we share a lot of the same flora. So we have also collaborated with Puerto Rican, and our Dewey from the USDI is also, we collaborate with our neighbors in the USDI as well to share information. So as you heard, I'm the Deputy Director for the National Parks Trust, and I do a lot of the scientific research. I've been with the Trust for 25 years. And we have 21 national parks. One of those is a marine park. And we cover historical sites. We have forested sites. We have one botanic garden. So this map is showing you, we have a frigate bird colony, at Great Tobago National Park. We have Caribbean dry forest at Border Peak, evergreen moist forest up at Sage Mountain. We are the highest point in the US and British Virgin Islands, Dewey. And we have historical sites. We have a Cornish copper mine ruin. So my job is very varied. And so I'm a generalist. I am not a true solo botanist. I do birds, I do everything. So it's really exciting, my job. You get to be a kind of a big fish in a little sea. So our botanic garden is the Joseph Reynolds O'Neill Botanic Garden. And it's very small, but it's in relation to our land size, 2.87 acres. It's in the center of Road Town, which is our capital of the BVI. It's a really popular location for events, weddings, school tours. It's a really great place in the community for people to come. Unfortunately, in 2007, Hurricane Irma, which was a Category 5 hurricane, absolutely desecrated the Botanic Gardens. If maybe some of you might have been at the Cuba conference where some of my colleagues presented on that. And that it's pretty devastating. We lost about 90% of our trees in the Botanic Gardens. But I'm pleased to say, when you look at the picture, the next one, 2020, that's all natural regeneration. We do want to redesign the Botanic Gardens where, funding is an issue. We're still trying to, locate that funding. But really, everything you see has grown back because we were under a lot of pressure, really, just to get, it's a major tourism destination. Tourism is a major part of the BVI economy. And they were looking for places for people to go. So it was like, we must get our Botanic Gardens open. So we had a lot of community support in cleaning up and getting the plants, and obviously all the staff at the gardens worked really hard. We only have a very small staff at the Botanic Gardens, about seven people, very small. So, but however, across the whole national park system, as I said, we do biodiversity conservation. So we plant mangroves, we do reforestation on land and sea. We do Arbor Day every year. So we have biodiversity flora and fauna conservation, the frigate bird colony, I think one of the largest in the Eastern Caribbean. We have a critically endangered rock iguana, Cyclurapindus, which is found on the island of Anegada, and known to be probably the oldest of the Cyclura family throughout the Caribbean. So we work closely with the Fort Worth Zoo in our conservation activities there. And of course, I would have to show a plant in this. We've got Machonia woodburyana, which is one of our endangered species in the BVI, and again, copper mine on Virgin Border. And we have a marine conservation program where we're protecting because we have a huge charter boat industry in the BVI. So as I mentioned, we have had a very long partnership with Kew. So Dr. Colin Clubb, who you heard from earlier today, he is in the picture there with me. That was us 25 years ago, Colin. That was when I first met you. We had more hair and I'm younger then. But basically, we have a fantastic partnership with Royal Botanic Gardens Kew, and to build capacity of our staff to identify plant life in the BVI, to help us identify where the threatened plants are, where the native plants are, to know how important our plant life in the BVI is in relation on the Puerto Rico bank. What we might be small, but what we find is, you know, we're not as developed as the US Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So we have larger populations of some of our threatened plants than our colleagues across the water. So it's really important for us to all share information, because when they do like the federal endangered species documents, they always want to know what our populations are to get relative proportion. So, and some of you might recognize Jose Versace. Oh, I went the wrong way. Go back. Oh, whole presentation now. Okay, there we go. No, that's really not the top of my. Okay. Just pretend you're not seeing everything. I'm not going to use the pointer. Jose Versace is up there. He's a state botanist of Puerto Rico. He's amazing. He's like a walking library. You don't go very fast, very soon, but he's amazing. Okay, so Colin talked about the TPIS work that we did. I won't go into too much detail, but it's a process to identify tropical important plant areas. It's using all the data that we've collected over 25 years, all the plant data of the threatened plants. We identified where our threatened habitats were, and then we had a series of workshops over a 3-year program following an internationally recognized process and criteria of identifying important plant areas. And these 18 sites is what we came up with, and it's really looking at concentrations of threatened plants and what are your nationally important threatened habitats. These are not national parks, these are not legally designated sites. They are just identified as important areas that we can then advocate with the development planning process to help influence what kind of activities take place in those areas. And also at the national parks, we're always looking to identify new protected areas. So it's a really important scientifically robust process to give more argument to what we do. And we produced a book, which Colin showed the same slide. This is actually available online. We do sell it in hard copy, but it's online. And it's really to raise awareness of our local population of what the threatened plants look like, because 80% of land in the BVI is privately owned. So most of these threatened plants are not within national parks. They would be on private. I think someone's calling me to ask a question. So one of our most recent projects is this, that's funded by the Darwin Plus. That's a UK granting agency, and it's called Integrating Biodiversity Metrics into Conservation Management Plans. So really what's that all about? We're looking at key species that contribute more to evolutionary diversity, heterogeneity, and resilience of habitats using biodiversity metrics. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm going to walk you through what this is all about. It's really, again, we try to use science behind a lot of what we do to strengthen our arguments. And my colleague Keith Brandt is the gentleman in the picture there, just so you know what he looks like. Okay, so a lot of what we do is field collection. We're collecting herbarium voucher specimens and we're collecting DNA. We've been doing this for many years. We've been feeding into the Kew Millennium Seed Bank since it began, but this is more targeted to look for species that we might not have identified in the past. We don't have a herbarium in the BVI yet. As you saw, our botanic garden was destroyed, but Kew has been collecting and storing these for us. So in the day that we do redevelop and we have a herbarium, they can all be returned. And for this project, we're going to have herbarium vouchers for every single species in the BVI. So it'll be an amazing library. And particularly, the DNA is wonderful because when you can't identify something that has no flowers or fruit, then eventually we'll be able to identify all species. And this is a picture that shows 2 of our staff. And we have a great new young caliber of staff. I'm so proud of them, and I'm really looking for training opportunities. So I'm doing a shout out to anybody who's got training opportunities, because they're such young, keen staff, and it's so important to get the next generation, because people now getting old. So, and Sarah Barrios from Kew, and Janine Velez, she's from the University of Mayagüez in Puerto Rico, and she manages the herbarium there. So she's an amazing resource for us and our staff. So getting a techie here again. We're going to establish a BVI biobank. So we're going to, as I said, collect DNA herbarium specimens. We're going to send these then to Kew. This is already happening now. We had our first fieldwork session back in December of last year. And then Kew then do the DNA extraction, and then they send it off to another partner for to generate the sequence barcoding references to get accurate identification of unknown specimens. And that really is important, because I said, if it's not in flower and fruit, sometimes everything just looks like a green leaf. It's pretty hard to tell it apart sometimes. So the overall goal is to create the tree of life of BVI. So really understanding those relationships between plants, which plants are the most important in the different habitats in the BVI, and that will help us with protected area planning, as well as how to better inform residents on how to maintain the plants on their property. And there's another, again, a picture of the Kew herbarium where everything is being stored. So in practical terms, how are we going to use this information? We want to be able to increase the number of native plants that we're growing in our nursery at the Botanic Gardens. We've been doing this for quite some time now, based on all the research we've been doing with Kew. But this is going to be a lot more targeted, so that when we do our annual Arbor Day and we're trying to promote trees to be grown out to the public and people can come and collect free trees, we can know that, okay, these tree species are most important on Tortola, so let's grow these plant species on Virgin Gorda, which is another island. We'll grow different ones for there, and then we'll try and target that, because those species are more important at playing a very important biodiversity role in the communities on those islands. So these pictures are showing, again, one of our new young ladies at the Botanic Gardens. She's really interested, Kyla, in medicinal plants, and that's actually how she's actually a nurse, but she came to us. She wanted to change jobs, and she was much more interested in learning about medicinal plants. So we're so excited that, it's great to have a nurse in the field too when you get injured, but she's very keen. She's doing a great job. And then there's some children with one of our past environment ministers, tree planting and Arbor Day. So we also want to use this information to help us with island restoration. That same park I talked to you about that has the frigate bird population, we have a massive problem with feral goats just denuding the island. We've had invasive plants. Unfortunately, the aloe, which are great for medicinal, are also invasive, so we've been removing them. They were obviously planted on this island in colonial times for their medicinal purposes, but unfortunately now we're removing those. So that's another Darwin project we're doing right now. We're removing the goats, removing invasive plants, and then we're going to see whether we need to do some reforestation there, or we'll have natural regeneration of plants. So I have to say a shout out, thank you to the Royal Society for Protection of Birds who helped fund my participation here through this project. And that was it. That's mine. I'm giving you all the information of where you can find the TPAS book if you're interested in finding out more. We're on Facebook. You can follow us. And thank you very much.
So much. Any questions for Nancy? One question, Christine.
I saw a picture of yesterday on your last slide. I wasn't sure if you were talking about that being an invasive or you has Cactolactis as an invasive. Is it invasive in BVI?
No, the reason there's a cacti on this picture, for anybody who's ever been to Great and Little Tobago, the island, we have every cacti species in the BVI is found on this island. So field work over there is just a lot of cactus and spines in you. So no, it's not invasive, but I had to show cactus to Great Tobago. Thank you. If you have any questions about the technical, really technical stuff, don't get Colin Clover here too, because he's one of our project partners.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nancy. And thank you to all the panelists